Hey, welcome back, nerds. This is the Star Wars series where we're talking about everything Star Wars. And you know what? In my old life, I worked in the TV and film industry. My travels took me everywhere from Hollywood to New York, to Chicago, down to Texas, and then up into Canada. All over the place. I spoke at user groups, I worked trade shows, and I went every year to the NAB convention in Las Vegas. So I go out to NAB. And I'd work in the booths I worked for a bunch of manufacturers like Avid and Boris Effects and EditShare and all these different companies, high-end video editing, visual effects, shared storage networks, and of course Avid, the gold premier of editing. Well, my wife would come out for several of these trips. Really, it would take me 10 days a year I'd spend in Las Vegas. And it was work. You know, I would be working the convention, but at night we'd get to hang out and do stuff. So my wife and I go to a really high-end autograph shop. And then one time, on the wall, there was a Rush guitar, signed by Alex Getty and Neil Peart. A Rush guitar, $1,500 for a guitar signed by Rush. She wanted to buy it. She's like, hey, I could put it on her credit card. Just let me put it on her credit card. And then I'm like, no, you know what? We need to save the money. I can't believe I turned that down. However, one of the biggest mistakes in my life. I could have a signed Rush guitar on my wall right now. Whew, we all make mistakes. So guess what? Another time at one of these shops, I got this. This is autographed by George Lucas. It's in the silver, and then Jake Lloyd, of course, who played Anakin Skywalker. So this is circa back around Phantom Menace, signed by George Lucas and Jake Lloyd. This is the certificate of authenticity. Say that 5 times fast. So yeah, George Lucas, Jake Lloyd. This is really precious to me, and really cool to have. And someday, when I get the proper man cave, this is going on the wall. Probably next to my signed Star Wars poster, which I haven't mentioned yet. This poster to my right is signed by Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, and Carrie Fisher. Luke, Leia, and Han. That's my most prized possession, of course, right there. Next to my Rush painting, and of course, an autograph by the man himself, George Lucas. Well, guys, thanks for coming back. This is episode 3. I've got a lot of amazing stuff to talk about tonight. Stay tuned, and let's go. In the Star Wars movies, there are so many iconic spaceships. Everything from the X-Wing to the TIE Fighter to the Millennium Falcon, and of course the Imperial Shuttle, and so many really cool, of course the B-Wing and the Y-Wing and the A-Wing, all these different wings. But one of the very most iconic is the X-Wing. And this right here is the 1978 original X-Wing fighter. Of course, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, came out in 1977. You can see it has a little bit of a battle damage here. And underneath, it has a pull-out stand so the X-Wing can actually land, right? Or in the case of Luke on Dagobah, he crash landed that sucker. But then we can take the airfoils, I think that's what they're called, the wings. And now we can go into X-Wing mode. Just press down on the little R2 on top. It's actually a trigger, which opens up the wings. Here's the back. And I believe that 2 AA batteries, or possibly AAAs, go in this compartment here. You lift this up with a little screwdriver. See the little kind of crescent shape? That opens up, and you can put batteries inside, and it makes X-Wing sounds. Of course, to keep my ship okay, as it sits there for years, I took the batteries out. So then, when you then need to go, say, to light speed or go fast again, you simply take this little switch. There we go. And then they go back to regular. So press down on R2, X-Wing, and then hit this again, they retract. I mean, this sucker is nearly 50 years old, and it still works great. Kenner made some amazing toys. Well crafted. Of course, we can lift this up and put the different Lukes inside. You know, from each movie, he flies an X-wing with his different outfits and stuff. So you can put your different figures in there. But yeah, that's the cockpit. Just a simple cockpit with a seat. Okay, and also one more cool thing. I told you there's batteries. This is the button that triggers the sound effects. But when the sounds do trigger, this lights up as well. This is the little red diode at the top. Okay, this is what it looks underneath. You can see, yeah, it's got a little bit of damage. But hey, it's 50 years old, and again, I used to play with this. All right, this is one of my toys that an excited little kid used to play with, and my goodness, considering that, it's in pretty good condition. So guys, the X-Wing, so iconic to Star Wars, so very cool, and man, now what I want to do is, in another episode, I'm going to show you the 1995 version, which is hanging right behind me right here, and I'm going to show you the update to that. It's actually bigger, really cool. But yeah, of course, this is the original 1978 model. Growing up, so many of us wanted to be Luke Skywalker, and we identified with him so much. He is the quintessential hero's journey, a farm boy who rises to greatness and is guided by an old wizard. And, in that hero's journey Luke goes on. But finally, getting closer to truly becoming a Jedi, in 1983, Jedi Luke comes out. And he has this is the cloth cloak. And then this is Luke. And then the picture behind me, that is a more modern lightsaber. I had, and I probably still do, I just can't find it at this very moment. He comes with a small, it's about this long. It's solid, like lime, kind of neon green. Even the handle is green. It's not the best design. The ones they came out with later, like for Power of the Force, much cooler lightsabers. Now, speaking of that, this is the Power of the Force version. And as you can see, of course, the original one comes with a cloth cloak. And the Power of the Force, Luke Skywalker, comes with kind of a vinyl or plastic cloak. And of course, here's that scene on top of Jabba's sail barge. It has information about Luke on the back. So again, here's the difference between the two. Jedi Luke Skywalker versus... And you can tell that the modern version has a much more refined face and a slightly smaller head. This one's kind of more bulbous, doesn't have as much detail, but it still looks like him. It still looks like Mark Hamill. So there you go, guys. Luke Skywalker in his Jedi outfit. In recent years, we have seen TV shows and movies with stories that incorporate the resurrection or cloning of the Emperor. I don't care for this, by the way. Let me just throw my 2 cents into the ring, if it's even an expression. But the best part of Return of the Jedi is when Vader picks him up and throws the Emperor down the shaft in the Death Star. And he dies. And he goes down squealing like a baby. That is a redemption for Darth Vader. That is defeating evil, defeating the Emperor. And when you have any story after that, try to bring him back, even if it's a clone, you've just destroyed and retconned all of Return of the Jedi. That's just wrong. And it bothers me. And you can't come up with an original story. Okay. So, we saw this in The Mandalorian. A big subplot of that series was them working on cloning. Heck, they needed Grogu's blood so they could study and look for metachlorians and all that crap. And then was it Rise of Skywalker? That was the whole point. The Emperor does come back. And at the end, he's like draining the life out of Rey and out of Ben Solo. See how much I paid attention. But I bring all of this up Because in 1998, the expanded universe had this. This is the clone Emperor Palpatine figure. So the idea that kind of sucked that they put in Mandalorian and Rise of Skywalker wasn't even their idea. Now, I'm not calling the idea... I'm really digging a hole here, but I think a lot of you might agree with me. But yes, this is the clone Emperor. I'm going to hold back on commentary now. For some reason, he has a blue lightsaber. Like the other expanded universes, this is a thicker package, which can then also fold out into a 3D set, if you will. Yes, the clone Emperor figure. So it is kind of cool, though, to know that those storylines that we saw put into The Mandalorian, I mean, basically they did that because Rise of Skywalker had already been written. You know, Mandalorian takes place just a little while after Return of the Jedi. It's in that time frame. Return of the Jedi, Mandalorian, fast forward to Rise of Skywalker. So, of course, if in Rise of Skywalker the Empire or the First Order is bringing back their big evil leader, right, then, of course, it was an interesting idea to go, okay, now what steps are they taking along the way to come up with cloning? And how do you clone a powerful Sith or Jedi? How do you do that? So that I didn't mind that subplot. I found that interesting. I don't care for the retconning. And, you know, just, again, if you defeat evil, it's dead. And that is the victory. And that is the victory we deserve as an audience, and that Luke and Vader deserve as father and son, and as heroes and or villains of Return of the Jedi. So, again, this is a clone Emperor. You know, I could have done all that without the extensive commentary and color on this, but I had to say something, because it does bother me, and I do love that moment in Return of the Jedi, where he does save his son, and he kills the evil, and at the end, he talks about his sister, meaning we see Anakin Skywalker, we see his face. And tell your sister, you were right. Tell your sister, you were right. It's such a beautiful moment. R2-D2 is one of the most iconic characters of Star Wars, and he's beloved by all of us, and he has been since we were children. I own many different versions of R2, from the action figures to full size to even a Taco Bell cup, a 32-ounce one that comes with the R2-D2 head, legs that go down the side. I still own it now, and here it is. I told you I was a nerd. Yes, this is like a 32-ounce drink cup, has an R2-D2 head on top, moving legs, and then you can take it off. Your soda will come in here. This is a promotional item. You can see on the back, Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut, and some information about R2. So yeah, you know, I kept this. It is pretty cool, actually. The 1977, and hey, forgive me, this is a little worse for wear. Again, this was my play toy, all right? And it came, by the way, the design of this, I mean, it's beautiful. All right, this is the original 1977 R2-D2. But I bring up the design because the actual outside of this, you know, he basically is like a trash can. It's a little plastic cylinder where they put paper glued to the outside. Well, you get that a little bit wet, maybe even once or twice, right? You get it near water, that paper's going to erode. It's going to pick up oils and dirt from your skin. Not the best idea, but again, they were rushing these to market. So yeah, this is the R2-D2 1977. It does have the periscope right here. And this goes by different names, but we'll call it a periscope for now, because you know what that is. His little antenna that he puts up. This is what he looks like on top. Nice and shiny. So yes, and again, how do I know? I looked at the bottom, and it says really fine print. It says 1977. So, original R2. Now, I own several versions from the Power of the Force line all the way up to Episode 1. And so I happened to find this one. This is Episode 1, still in box, R2-D2. So you can see the difference, right? It's actually a much different size. And His body is made of molded plastic that's painted, not a silly sticker. So this is going to last longer, right? Wouldn't that make sense? But as you know, with the later Power of the Force line and the Episode 1 figures, it comes with a comm chip and the comm reader that I mentioned before. So again, here's the difference. Okay, here's the side-by-side comparison of R2-D2 and what they look like. This is a loose model from the Power of the Force line. Okay, you can see the size difference here. Right? Molded, painted versus not molded in a sticker. And this one includes the third leg, which can retract up into the body, just like R2's leg, third leg can come in and out. On the back, it has a little knob here, a little switch, if you will, where you can pull that out. And then this is how in episode 1, I showed the recreation of that iconic scene. And by the way, rest in peace, Carrie Fisher. She says, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." And she records that message that Luke and Obi-Wan watch. So, yeah. And then this is Leia. And we'll talk about her in a later episode. But for now, here is the difference. Now, this one does not have the periscope on top. Does not have it. And this one does, of course. The original one. So there's the size difference. Now, this one, hear that click? Certain models had the clicking sound, some did not. And then this one does not have a click, it just turns around. R2 can turn around. But the original one did have a little click as it went around. And that kind of differentiates the original line, because I believe they made an update for at least 1980, possibly 83. But again, this is 77, and then this R2 is from the Power of the Force. So I mentioned in episode 1 that the cards that the Star Wars figures came on had a proof of purchase that was right here. Okay? It says Kenner or Star Wars and a proof of purchase. You can cut that circle out and mail away for certain figures. One of those figures early on, before it was Anakin Skywalker, was the Emperor. This is the 1983 Emperor toy. It did come with a little cane. You can see him. Now, in Power of the Force, the slide edition, this is the Emperor. Kind of similar. Similar in look. Similar in size. Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. He has a slightly darker cloak. We can see through the plastic here. And then this cane is very similar to the cane that came with him. So yeah, this is the Emperor. On the back, you can see a picture from him from Return of the Jedi. Emperor Palpatine. So yeah, yes, this is the original one. And again, there was no internet with which I could send away, scan, a QR code and go and get an Emperor toy, right? Not back then. You had to physically cut out a little circle proof of purchase right here. Put like 5 or 6 of those in an envelope, lick the envelope, put a stamp on it, send it away, and hope you got a figure. And I did. One day in the mail, the Emperor showed up. And what a great day that was. This one is kind of funny. If you're collecting and or playing with Star Wars figures, you have the must-haves, right? Luke, Leia, Han, 3PO, R2-D2, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, Boba Fett. The must-haves, those core awesome characters. And then you have those ancillary characters, right? Where they're just trying to sell toys and it happens to get 10 seconds of screen time in the movie. Well, falling somewhat into that category, but definitely in the who gives a what, is Bib Fortuna. All right? And I do have the staff for him. And by the way, as I'm showing these figures, I have weapons for most of them. But just to keep things organized, I have the weapons safe in another place. I just want to throw that out there. The pictures that you've been seeing behind me, I shot every one of those. I didn't go online to get them. I took my own photography and I created these slides before, if you will, behind me on my own. So this is all my original creation. So, because you can see the staff back there. But this is Bib Fortuna, and as you know, he greets Luke in that front kind of catacomb of Jabba's palace, and he kind of stands off to the side of Jabba, right? That's his job. I guess he's the attendant or whatever he is. Now, I do have two of them, okay? And speaking of two, again, with the who cares category of figures, I have two Power of the Force Bib Fortunas. I don't know why I have two of these. This is the back. Bib Fortuna. Okay. There he is. So just an A-B comparison. They're actually kind of similar. This is cloth, and I believe that's a plastic in there. So it's slightly different there. And the Bib Fortuna and the Power of the Force comes with a blaster. And, of course, this guy came with a kind of a staff kind of thing. So that's the difference here, right? Bib Fortuna. Now, I have something to show, kind of funny to show you. Since I have these two, right, I started to think, what if? So I made a graphic for it. In this photo you see behind me, which I will reenact now, doesn't this kind of look like a scolding, nagging wife when this guy's come home late from work or he went out with his friends, like, where have you been? It's like, oh, well, where have you been? Oh. Or the speaking alien, like, you know what I mean? So it looks like a married Bib Fortuna couple. And that's just what came to mind when I put these two figures together in Photoshop. I'm like, holy crap, that's hilarious. Anyway, she's nagging him out. Anyway, I don't know why I made the wife a mean, bitter, ugly person in this scenario. She could be the sweet, doting life, but you know what? That's not funny. So I thought I would go with the funny angle here. Anyway, guys, Bib Fortuna. As you can see, this is, I'm just dropping them all, Force Awakens, the Power of the Force, and the 1983 model. Just months after the release of Star Wars, the studio, Lucas, Kenner, no one was prepared for the massive acceptance and just how much people love Star Wars. And because of that, they were able to sell so many toys. So the first line came out, and people had to wait. They had like a promise card that came out. And then you finally get that. And then the second line came out. That happened in 1978. Well, one of those figures in 1978 was Hammerhead. This is Hammerhead from 1978. And then I also have the Power of the Force version. And you can see the difference here. Slightly bigger feet, bigger hands, giant gun. On the back, you have a picture of Hammerhead from the movie. You know, this is one of the figures I never used very much while I played. And, you know, you can tell by how stiff the arms and the legs are. Which I've read, you know, means that some figures are more valuable because, you know, they have stiff arms. But you know what? I never cared to have Hammerhead in any of my stories. So he kind of either sat in a box or he was in the background of one of my scenes. So, but yeah, guys, this is 1978 Hammerhead. And then this is the 1996 Power of the Force Hammerhead. In Empire Strikes Back, when they're on the run, Han Solo, Leia, Chewie, they go to Cloud City because Han has an old friend. And that friend is, of course, Lando Calrissian. This, from 1980. This was 1980, Lando Calrissian. In comparison, this is the Power of the Force line from, say, 95, 96. You can see it has the orange stripe, right? The early Power of the Force line. Much different body. Check that out. So much more muscular. He's been lifting weights, man. Lando's been getting after it in the gym. And then on the back, see a picture of Lando, information about Lando. So yeah, Lando Carlissian, really cool character. Really kind of complex character, but it turns out that, helped them in the end. It's very cool. He couldn't help it that Vader and the Imperial forces show up and take over Cloud City. And there's all that covert stuff, right? And they take Han, who's eventually, frozen in carbonite, which, that's all just, we needed that. It's part of the story. But Lando was there and became part of the team from that day on. Just 2 years after the Power of the Force line came out, they came out with slightly bigger, posable figures. One of which is the, quote, fully posable Yoda. A lot of really nice detail on there. Of course, this guy's still sealed in the box. Yoda from Empire and Return of the Jedi. You can see that there's also an R2 and a Jawa. I have one more of these. I have a Wicket, all right, the Ewok, and I will show you him in a later episode. But for now, yes, this is just a little Yoda doll. Actually has a real cloth cloak and his walking stick with that. They say it's fully posable. I wouldn't know. I haven't opened it. But yeah, this is actually kind of a cool toy. When I was digging out my collection, I forgot so many things that I had. I don't even know where these things came from. But it's kind of cool that I found them. It was like Christmas morning. I open up a plastic bin. I'm like, okay. I didn't know I had that. And again, my wife, my mom, my family, they would buy me stuff. I might just buy stuff, and so, or stuff, it's just, I have no idea where it comes from. But it's just part of my collection from 1997, Yoda. This next one is an insider family joke. When I was a kid, one Christmas, and we actually have this on VHS tape, and I really want to find that tape because recently I've been capturing our family home movies, and I have all my old videotapes from our family, from my great papa who was recording back in the 80s, and I have these, and I actually have a YouTube channel just for our family. I bring all that up because one Christmas I get a lunchbox. It's probably Star Wars. And I open, I'm like excited. I have my lunchbox, right? And I can't believe I'm getting lunchboxes for Christmas. But again, I also got cool stuff then. Like I'd probably get my chicken walker, my ATST, right? Well, it's right here. So I'd get cool stuff, but I'd also get, it was Star Wars. It was still really cool. So one of those things, this is the Empire Strikes Back metal lunchbox. Now check it out. On the back, completely different scene. Luke learning to use the Force with Yoda. Then in the cockpit, Han on his Tauntaun. Vader. And nothing really on the bottom. Oh, but a cool Hoth scene on the top, made by Thermos. Now, I'd open up my lunchbox. Here's the punchline. I'd open it up and go, what? No thermos? I had a really bad list back then. What? No thermos? Yeah, so I would open it up and there would not be a thermos in here. So this must have been a gift from my mom because guess what? She wrote a note. When adult Eric got this from a gift for his mom, he goes, what? Again, no thermos? Which is truly ironic given that it's literally made by the Thermos company. You can't include a thermos. Now, most of these did come with one. You remember those big, thick, chunky plastic thermoses? It would literally take up half. It would take up half of the space inside here. But I guess in the other half, you do your chips, your sandwich, whatever you're doing for lunch. But yeah, this is an original Empire Strikes Back lunchbox. Inside this very lunchbox, I found a surprise. When I was taking this out of storage, inside, I found my original Star Wars books. The novelization. How cool, right? I used to actually read these. You can tell they're worn. Of course, these suckers are old. But yes, these are the novelizations. Now, the Star Wars one has pictures on the inside, which is a nice feature, giving you pictures from the movie. Here's Empire Strikes Back. Let's see, any pictures in here? No. Yeah, so, okay, Return of the Jedi has pictures. So, again, the novel of Return of the Jedi. We should double our efforts, he says to Vader. In here we have Salacious Crumb, Jabba the Hutt, C-3PO. We have the fight over the Sarlacc pit. Wow, the pages are coming out. General Akbar, Leia and Luke on Endor. The face-off with the Imperial troops and the Ewoks, and then finally the victory celebration after they blew up the Death Star. So yes, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars. But not to be overdone. This is more the adult fare. I also have children's storybooks. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. These I read a lot. They have full pictures inside here with the story of the movie. This one's Star Wars, of course. Storybook. This is Empire Strikes Back. What a great cover, right? Man, talk about, George Lucas directed the first movie, right? But not the second and third. He got other directors. In that, I don't bring that up to say that he couldn't have done this, but those scenes on Cloud City, those scenes, right, over the carbonite freezing chamber with the cool blue lighting and all the fog coming up from the machinery below and the lit stairs on which Luke and Vader have their first lightsaber duel. So beautifully shot and lit and set design. Just such an iconic, beautiful scene. Of course, we have the chase. Always on the run. Always on the run. There we go. The first time we see Boba Fett, of course. Empire Strikes Back. And on the back cover, we have the dynamic duo. And then finally, one of the most iconic pictures from Star Wars, right? Luke just being a BA with his lightsaber on the sail barge over the Sarlacc pit. And then they take down Boba Fett, of course. And then, of course, Vader comes up to meet the Emperor on the Death Star. Episode 2, I showed you a decorative plate with the X-Wing, the trench, Vader's TIE Fighter, and, of course, an explosion when the Millennium Falcon comes in to save the day. Well, this time, I have more TIE Fighters, but I have Cloud City. This is a decorative plate with TIE Fighters flying around Cloud City. Beautiful artwork. Just beautiful. That gold rim. And on the back, okay, see Hamilton Collection. It is hand numbered because it's a limited edition. And again, I wouldn't have this plate if it weren't for my wife. This is her touch, her feminine touch, to my Star Wars collection. It is a nice feature, and someday when I have that proper man cave, yes, she just said it actually. My wife just said that. She's like, yeah, she was thinking about my office, right? This room where I record, how we could put the plates around, and probably not, but if we had kind of more of a shared space, man cave, yes, we could have we could put them up, and that would be cool. But yeah, I still have some reservations about putting plates on my wall. It's a little too old lady, if you will. But anyway, but it is cool to have. It is nice to know it's a limited edition. They're not making them anymore. It was hand numbered, and I have no idea what it's worth. Probably not much, but it is kind of cool. I have more of these guys. Subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Is that not... I'm probably the first person in the history of YouTube to say, hey, subscribe if you want to see more decorative plates. That's not what I meant. But if you do want to see more of them, I have a Millennium Falcon. I have several more in my my bedroom closet. I have a stack of these, and there's probably 7 or 8 to 10 of these styrofoam cases that comes in a styrofoam case, the playtest, and I have these stacked up in there. They've been there for 20 years. That's how much I care about them. But knowing that we're doing this series, knowing that this is a unique, kind of cool, I can't believe they used the word cool for a porcelain plate. But yeah, this is interesting. Maybe it's not even interesting. I don't know. But it is what it is, to quote someone that I know. But this has been episode 3. Episodes 1 and 2 are also available, and there'll be clickable links at the very end of this video, right after I'm done talking. But also, I have a video out as well talking about kids' imaginations, and do they still play with toys, and what is the internet? You know, I'm just kind of waxing philosophical about all that. In addition, in that very video, I talk about how Disney Star Wars is not Star Wars. Okay? Ever since Disney bought George Lucas, with the exception of maybe Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, it's not Star Wars. They've butchered the IP, they've taken Star Wars, and they've crapped on its grave. So, I talk about some of that. So check that video out as well. So episodes 1 and 2 are available. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 3. Episode 4 will follow this, and we'll talk about a lot more Star Wars stuff. And until next time, guys, may the Force be with you. And I hope you have a good night.